In the heart of imperial Rome, behind marble columns and golden walls, a scandal was about to shake an empire. She was young, beautiful, and dangerous. Her lovers were senators, actors, even the most powerful men in the empire. And yet, she was the wife of the emperor himself. This is the story of Valeria Messalina, the Roman empress who ruled through her lovers until her passion brought down an empire. The year is AD 41. Emperor Caligula is dead, murdered by his own guards after years of madness and terror. In the confusion, the Praetorian Guard searches the palace and finds a trembling man hiding behind a curtain. That man is Tiberius Claudius Caesar, the uncle of Caligula, the man no one expected to rule. Within hours, he is declared emperor, and beside him rises a woman history would never forget, his wife, Valeria Messalina. Messalina was born around AD 17 into the powerful Valerii Messala family, an ancient patrician line tracing back to the Republic. Her blood carried the prestige of Rome itself. When she married Claudius in AD 38, he was an older man, shy, bookish, and often mocked by his peers. Their union was political, but for Messalina, it was also an opportunity. At only 20 years old, she became the Empress of Rome, the youngest woman ever to sit beside the emperor. Ancient writers describe Claudius as brilliant, but hesitant, a scholar, not a soldier. He relied heavily on his freedmen and his wife. Messalina quickly learned how Rome's palace truly worked: influence, favors, secrets. She rewarded allies, punished rivals, and wove herself into every decision. In public, she smiled beside Claudius. In private, she built a web of loyalty and desire. To the people of Rome, she was the model empress, elegant, generous, adored. But in the shadows, her reputation began to darken. The historian Tacitus claimed she used her beauty to control senators and generals. Suetonius wrote that her ambition was boundless, and Cassius Dio accused her of turning the imperial palace into her playground, a place of power and pleasure. Whether fact or propaganda, one thing was clear: no woman in Rome's history had wielded such influence or provoked such fear. But power, in Rome, never lasts without enemies. And soon, the empress's passions would lead her straight to destruction. Power in Rome was never granted. It was taken with gold or with desire. Messalina understood this better than anyone. Her influence spread through favors, friendships, and, according to ancient historians, through her lovers. Some were actors, some were nobles, all were stepping stones to power. Among them was the most dangerous of all, Gaius Silius, a man the sources called the handsomest in Rome. Gaius Silius was no ordinary senator. He was wealthy, ambitious, and childless. For Messalina, he was a tool of influence. For Silius, she was the key to the throne. Tacitus writes that they shared more than passion. They shared a dream: to rule Rome together. While Claudius busied himself with legal reforms and infrastructure, Silius and Messalina used the palace's silence for their own council of power. Ancient gossip accused her of bribing officials, silencing rivals, even plotting marriages for her allies to tighten her control. The empire became her stage. Every alliance, a seduction. Every whisper, a move in her game. But Gaius Silius was not her first, nor her only. The historian Suetonius names another man, Mnestor, a celebrated actor favored by the emperor himself. Claudius adored his performances. Messalina adored the man. According to Dio Cassius, she used the imperial stage itself for her pleasures. Mnestor's presence in her private chambers shocked Rome's elites, a reminder that not even the emperor's favorites were safe from her charm. In a society where class defined destiny, Messalina crossed every line and made her own. Messalina's palace became a web of alliances and a trap. To her enemies, she was a temptress corrupting the emperor. To her allies, she was the true source of power. She arranged marriages, appointed governors, even interfered in trials. Some historians believe that behind Claudius's decrees, her hand was guiding the pen. But every empire built on desire eventually consumes itself. The rumors spread faster than truth. Rome whispered of the Empresses' secret competitions, her alleged contests of passion with the city's courtesans. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, wrote that Messalina once challenged a famous prostitute to see who could take more lovers in a single night, and that she won. Whether truth or slander, the story echoed through every tavern, every bathhouse, every senator's hall. Her name became a symbol of lust and danger. But beneath the gossip, a real threat was forming. Her lover, Gaius Silius, was about to push the unthinkable. A marriage, a coup, against the Emperor of Rome himself. Their passion had conquered the palace. But in Rome, the price of desire was always blood. By AD 48, Messalina's hunger for power had reached its peak. Her lover, Gaius Silius, was now one of the most visible men in Rome. Together, they had wealth, allies, and influence. But Silius feared what every Roman feared: discovery. If Claudius ever learned of their affair, both would die. So Silius proposed something extraordinary. He would divorce his wife and marry Messalina, not in secret, not as a rumor, but in a public ceremony, while Claudius was still emperor. To modern ears, it sounds like madness, but in the deadly politics of Rome, ambition often walked hand in hand with insanity. Tacitus tells us that Messalina agreed. She believed Claudius was distracted, occupied with affairs in Ostia, supervising harbor works. Silius gathered witnesses. Priests were bribed. Invitations were sent. And in broad daylight, in Rome itself, the Empress of the Roman Empire married another man. The ceremony was no secret. It was, as Tacitus put it, as though the world had gone mad. Guests applauded. Musicians played. The Empress had become a bride. The Emperor knew nothing. Word spread through the city like wildfire. Senators whispered in disbelief. The Praetorian Guard hesitated, unsure who their loyalty belonged to. Could it be that Claudius was no longer emperor? Was Messalina placing Silius on the throne? According to Cassius Dio, the ceremony was part of a coup, an attempt to secure Claudius's death before his return. Some believed she planned to poison him. Others said she would have him declared insane. What is certain is this: the news would soon reach Claudius. And when it did, Rome would tremble. For the first time, Claudius realized his empire and his marriage had become one and the same, and both were collapsing. The messenger reached Claudius. The emperor froze in shock, then rage. His freedmen, Narcissus, Pallas, and Callistus, urged him to act. Narcissus, the most cunning of them all, took command of the Praetorians before hesitation could set in. He told them, "Messalina has married another man. The emperor is betrayed." The guards prepared their weapons. Orders were clear. Return to Rome. Arrest the traitors. Kill whoever resists. The Empress's empire of pleasure was about to face the sword. When the Praetorians entered Rome, the city froze. Messalina fled to her gardens. Silius was seized before he could fight back. According to Tacitus, he did not plead for mercy. He asked only for a quick death, and received it. Others were executed in the streets. The Empress was next. She had gone from the most powerful woman in the empire to its most wanted fugitive. But even then, Claudius hesitated. He wanted to see her. He wanted to believe it was all a lie. It would be the last mistake of his reign. In the gardens of Lucullus, the Empress waited for her fate, and the empire held its breath. As the sun fell over Rome, Valeria Messalina fled to the gardens of Lucullus, the vast estate her beauty and ambition had once filled with laughter. Now it was silent. The fountains no longer sang. The corridors echoed only with fear. She was alone, with her mother, Domitia Lepida, and a few loyal slaves. Tacitus writes that she still believed Claudius would forgive her. She ordered fresh flowers, changed her dress, and rehearsed her tears. But the sound approaching through the garden gates was not Claudius. It was Narcissus, his most trusted freedman, and he had come with orders. Claudius sat at a banquet, silent, confused. He asked again, "Is Messalina still alive?" His advisors exchanged nervous looks. The emperor was weak. His heart wavered. If he saw her again, he might pardon her. Narcissus knew it, and so he made a decision that would change Rome forever. He would act before the emperor could forgive. Narcissus arrived at the gardens of Lucullus with a detachment of Praetorians. Messalina ran to meet him, still clinging to hope. "Let me speak to the emperor," she begged. "I can explain." But Narcissus did not answer. He handed the centurion a sword. Tacitus writes, Messalina understood then that her time had come. The centurion faltered. Messalina hesitated too, unable to take her own life. Finally, Narcissus gave the signal. In the autumn of AD 48, Valeria Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, mother of Britannicus, mistress of Rome, was executed in the gardens she had once filled with luxury. Her body lay among the roses she had planted. No rites, no procession, no farewell from the emperor. When Narcissus reported that Messalina was dead, Claudius simply nodded. Then he asked for wine, and the banquet resumed. The next day, her statues were torn down, her name erased from inscriptions. Her son Britannicus would never forgive Narcissus, nor his father. Within years, Claudius would marry again, this time to Agrippina the Younger, mother of Nero. Tacitus writes that when Claudius later mentioned Messalina, her name was met with silence. She had ruled Rome through beauty, passion, and power, but in the end, even her memory was condemned. Rome had buried its empress, but it had not buried her shadow, for from her ashes would rise another woman who would use love, manipulation, and power to rule the empire again. Her name was Agrippina. Messalina was gone. But the empire of intrigue she built would outlive her, in the next empress who learned from her downfall. Messalina was dead, but the imperial bed had not been cold for long. Rome demanded an empress. Claudius, now in his late 50s, was weak, lonely, and easily influenced. His advisors began to whisper a single name: Agrippina the Younger, niece of Claudius, sister of Caligula, and great-granddaughter of Augustus himself. She was everything Messalina had been, and more: ruthless, intelligent, cautious. Where she had survived exile, she had survived Caligula, and now she was coming for the throne. Tacitus writes that nothing in the state was done without Agrippina's knowledge. Rome had lost an empress of passion and gained one of precision. There was one obstacle. Claudius was Agrippina's uncle. Roman law forbade their marriage, but Agrippina was relentless. She lobbied senators, priests, and jurists, and in AD 49, the Senate passed a decree allowing the emperor to marry his niece, the first time in Roman history. The crowd cheered. But beneath the applause, Rome whispered. One empress was executed for betrayal, they said. The next would perfect it. Once empress, Agrippina moved quickly. She dismissed rivals, replaced Messalina's allies, and took command of the court. The freedmen who had once served Messalina now served her. Narcissus obeyed her. Pallas adored her. She was not ruled by passion, but by strategy. She knew what destroyed Messalina: excess and visibility. So Agrippina hid her ambition behind obedience, while pulling every string. In less than a year, she became the most powerful woman in the Roman world. Even Claudius began to fade from public life. Tacitus wrote, "She shared his bed, his table, and his empire." Agrippina had one purpose: to secure the throne for her son, Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, whom she renamed Nero. She persuaded Claudius to adopt him, making Nero heir over his biological son, Britannicus, Messalina's child. With that single act, the fate of Rome shifted again. The empire that once belonged to Messalina's son now belonged to Agrippina's. The torch had passed, not by blood, but by manipulation. Within 5 years, Claudius was dead, poisoned, most ancient writers claim, by Agrippina herself. Nero became emperor at 16. Agrippina stood beside him, draped in gold, hailed as Mother of the Emperor. She had achieved what Messalina never could: rule without scandal, power without exposure. But like Messalina, her story too would end in blood. In the end, Rome did not learn from Messalina. It merely replaced her. One empress ruled through passion, the next through precision. Both mastered men, until Rome turned on them. The empire that killed Messalina would soon destroy Agrippina too, and at its heart, her own son. By AD 59, the woman who had ruled Rome through her lovers, her husband, and finally her son, faced the same fate as her predecessor. Agrippina the Younger had become too powerful, too feared. Nero, the boy she had raised to be emperor, now saw her as his greatest threat. The ancient writers are united on this. Nero ordered her death, first by shipwreck, then by dagger. As the soldiers surrounded her, Agrippina's last words, according to Tacitus, were, "Strike here, in the womb that bore such a monster." In killing Agrippina, Nero had killed the last voice that could restrain him. Rome had entered its darkest age. Within a single generation, Rome had seen 2 empresses rise and fall, each destroyed by the very system that made them powerful. Messalina had ruled through desire, Agrippina through calculation. One died in the garden, the other by her son's sword. Both became symbols of women in a man's empire who dared to reach for power. Historians debated their sins and motives for centuries. Were they villains or victims of the world they lived in? Tacitus called them dangerous. Dio called them immoral. But through their scandals, Rome revealed something deeper. The empire feared not just betrayal, but female power itself. After Agrippina's death, Nero ruled unchecked. He killed rivals, burned Rome, and plunged the empire into chaos. The dynasty that began with Augustus, built on control, order, and family, now ended in blood and fire. And at the root of it all were the choices made in the emperor's bedchamber. Power, love, and betrayal, the Roman triangle that never broke. Messalina taught Rome that lust could rule. Agrippina proved intelligence could command. But neither could survive the empire they tried to control. Today, their names survive not in monuments, but in warnings. To Rome, they were cautionary tales, examples of what happens when women reach beyond their place. But to history, they are something more. Symbols of ambition, resilience, and the human cost of empire. Tacitus wrote that the vices of others are lessons to the wise. Messalina and Agrippina were not just women who fell. They were mirrors, reflecting the empire that destroyed them. In the end, the Roman Empire outlived them all, but it never forgot them. For as long as history remembers power and passion, the names Messalina and Agrippina will whisper through the ruins. Two women who ruled not with crowns, but with hearts, ambition, and the courage to defy an empire. And that is how Rome was ruled, through its lovers.